So welcome to Mr. T.M. Krishna and thanks for organizing this course here. Welcome to the CMI community and also people from elsewhere who have come to listen to this. Now, just a number of practical comments. First, CMI undergraduates are urged to register, and if you want your registration form signed, I am the person to do it. Okay, so we can do this during the break or even tomorrow. The schedule is on the web, subject to change, and at least one lecture is scheduled for a Saturday. So be aware of that. And in fact, a Saturday lecture might happen in the afternoon. So just watch out for changes. The lectures are being recorded, video recorded, and eventually after editing and with permission of the speakers will be put up on the web. Notes, so this is an opportunity to introduce Vidya Raghavan, who is T.M. Krishna's student and also the teaching assistant for the course. She's right here. So she's going to help us sort of summarize each lecture and put them up on the web. There is a list of books that Mr. Krishna had recommended, some of which are available in the library. Others, I think.
And I think also before every lecture, week before, there will be a reading material, suggested reading material sent to you.
So just check, everything will be put up on the website, which is actually, if you look at it carefully, it is very comprehensive. That is all relevant information. It doesn't have difficult points, but short of that, it's pretty deep. So with that, with no further ado, I'm
yes. Okay, good afternoon. I'm first very glad to see, I presume, more people from CMI than from outside. So I'm very glad to see that. Today's lecture, what I would like to do is create a certain base, a foundation for what's going to happen in the course over the next 3 months. For those who read the information that's already there on the web, we are going to be discussing different art forms, and there are going to be other lecturers coming in who have specialized in these art forms. And in a way, those art forms will be used as, shall we say, the core to try and understand cultures that evolve from similar backgrounds. So that's the idea of the diversity of the art forms that you find that is being used. So it's not just the specificity of that one art form, but cultures that come from those backgrounds. So what I would like to do today is kind of create a larger canvas on which every one of those lectures, and that we can progress through 3 months understanding the larger perspective of art and all of us. So that's going to be foundationally what I'd like to do today. Can I start with something very simple? There are 2 words that are there in the title for the course, which is art in context. So if every one of you can very quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4 words maximum, describe either art or context. You can choose.
You said you're not going to use this.
I don't need this at all. There it is. So I love listening to my voice, so I prefer to just ignore anything else that would disturb my voice. So, thank you. Shut down, sir. I can shut this down also. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks. So, if you can just, that's it. Yeah, so if we can just start in a very simple fashion, words, few words, not more than 4 or 5 words, that would be a response to the word art or to the word context, or both, which I leave it to you. And if your thoughts are similar to somebody else's, you can just say it's similar to somebody else's. So I will start from this side, obviously. So anybody who wants to start?
Art can be described as a sort of application of one's creativity,
Okay,
expression of human mind.
okay. Similar. Anything else?
Production of an artifact that evokes meaning and or emotion.
Meaning or emotion. Okay. Anything else? Yes? Communication. Lovely. Anything else? You want to go again? Okay. Expression. Okay. Beauty. Lovely. Any other words that come to your mind that when we say art? Abstraction. Okay. Anything else? From that side, anybody? Context. You could respond to context too. Culture. Okay. Any of you guys here? Any thoughts? Any words that pop up? It could be a name of a movie too. It could be anything. Space of ideas. Space of ideas. Okay. Pleasure. Lovely. Fun. Who said fun? Sorry, I didn't see. Okay, fun. Sorry, society history for context. Okay. Science. Okay.
That which gives the artifact meaning or
The context is your answer for context. Okay, that which gives the artifact meaning. Okay.
and evokes emotion. So where one
You just inverse the previous statement.
related.
Yeah, which was an inversion, by the way. So, but anyway, anything else? Yes. Politics, fabulous. Yeah. Anything else from that side? Any of the younger people from that side? Have we covered more or less what all of you think? Or is there anything very divergent from what has been said today? Fantasy. Lovely word. Freedom. Who said that? I'm sorry, I didn't see. Okay, freedom. Beautiful. Anything else?
I just want to, can I add something?
Mhm.
What here, you mentioned science.
Mm-hmm.
I want to amplify that. Because science is not antithetic to art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the great Chandrasekhar has a book on beauty in science.
Mm-hmm.
So beauty is an art also.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a close connection between art and science, which most people don't ignore.
Okay.
So I want to mention that.
Fine. Fine. No argument.
Response to environment.
Response to environment. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Context, I would say structure.
Very interesting. Context, structure. Yeah. Yeah. Circumstance. Oh, I can't hear you. Background. Okay. Background. Okay.
Context, nature.
Nature. Okay. Anything else? Context. You can also problematize it. Progress. He's making it easy. Let's complicate it. Context. Let's complex.
Restriction.
Huh?
Context, restriction.
Fabulous. Yeah, come on. It's also, all of you saying very good things. Come on, let's problematize the situation. Even with art, problematize it. Even with art, let's problematize it. It's very essential that we problematize the word. Economics, and somebody said some word from here. Collision. Fabulous. Now come on. Let's get a little ugly. Struggle. Good. Crime. Excellent. Psyche. Stigma. Fabulous. Incitement. And sorry? Offense.
Response to emotions and feelings.
Okay. He's a good man. Go ahead. Depression. Very good. Very good. Just remember, this is a standing rule. I'm going to throw a rule. I hate rules, but I'm going to throw a rule. Please problematize whatever we discuss. Okay? I think it's essential that you problematize it. Both you can problematize it even with so-called positivity. Because otherwise, we'll all be saying the same thing, and then we are not going anywhere in the conversation. So, fabulous. Escapism, great. You know what's fascinating about what happened in the last 2.5 minutes, which did not happen for the first 5 minutes, is we said the things that really are inside our head that bothers us about these two words. Until then, we said the things that we're used to saying about those words. So both are real. Both are absolutely real. There's no question. But it's essential that we did this because in a way, that's exactly what this course is going to do. In a way, through the 3 months, you are going to hear contradiction. You are going to hear about various art forms, various art cultures, human behavior, which is going to create conflicting signals of this whole environment. Therefore, it's important that we see both sides of it as being coexistent at some level, with a certain distance of it, because only then it gives us an idea of how do we deal with it for ourselves and how do we understand its own role in our lives and the larger spectrum of society. So, as an artist, the word art is taken so much for granted. It's a word that I would never think about. Honestly, it's a word I would never think about. To me, it's a very normal happening in life. What do you mean art? You sit and sing. That's it. Art happens. What is there this conversation about what is art? No, what is art? It's just we sing and it's art. So, you must first understand that for an artist, it is very difficult to understand this idea of art, its role, its context. All these things are kind of contrarian to how I am brought up as a human being, as an artist. I am told I learn. Yes, I have some talent, conceded. I work hard. And I'm going to use another very dangerous term, which probably is prevalent in this environment, which is merit. I have merit. And therefore, I make it. And therefore, I give people great pleasure. And everybody is happy. And we go back home. And then I do that again every day. And that's it. And there's some beautiful art being created. So where is this question of all these interactions? I just want to start here because I want to first tell you why I'm doing this course, why I'm part of this conversation. So I think it's important that I place it before we even proceed. Why should a musician ever ask these questions? And I think it's a very fair point to make. Because like a lot of people have written in the world of art, the musician or the painter or the poet's job is not to wonder about the construction and all this. Their job is to basically do it. It's the critique and the receivers whose job is to then do the analysis of what's going on. So why should an artist bother about this? Now, I grew up in an environment which was very conducive for Carnatic music. And I learned Carnatic music, showed some talent, started singing, became popular within quotes. I was accepted among my colleagues and among my seniors and among aficionados. So everything is fine, going fine. Now, the problem began in a very interesting level. Okay, I'm going to explain the context in which my journey changed. It's a very interesting point. So about 15 years ago, I was preparing for releasing an album. Okay, the album had a specific theme and a subject and all that. There was this one composition that we couldn't find. Usually in our music, the way we learn a composition is go to a teacher. We don't reconstruct a composition from text. Okay? So we go to a teacher, the teacher teaches you the composition and then you sing it. Now this composition had not been rendered by anybody. Okay? So my colleague and I took this old treatise written in 1904 called the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini. we found that composition in that treatise. And we said, okay, let's reconstruct it from the treatise. We reconstructed the composition. To put it very in terms of our work, this is purely a technical exercise, right? It's an exercise within music, exercise of technique, exercise of theory, exercise of skill. So this is a purely, very similar to probably what many students here do, probably very, very intense technical exercise, in a way completely distant from the culture that enables this whole exercise, or so we believe. So we reconstructed this composition. I can tell you it was in the raga called Mangala Kaishiki. We reconstructed this composition. And when I looked at that treatise, there are symbols to how this composition should be sung. But like in Indian culture, we don't really follow that. We basically reinvent it knowing the music that you already know. So we in a way reinvented the composition for the 21st century, so to speak. Then the curious question appeared is, okay, suppose I sing this composition exactly as notated by this man in 1904, how is this composition going to sound? It is again a very theoretical, musicological question. So then this whole thing triggered a possible project of reconstructing all the compositions in that book exactly as written by this man. So we got into this project. Absolutely, I had no clue where this is going to lead me. Parallelly, there was this whole problem that I was facing of what is this music am I singing, that I'm singing? Yes, everybody loves it. I enjoy it. I'm flattered. I know it's beautiful. But what is this whole relationship about this art? And this happened. And when we started this project, the most astounding thing happened to me. Is if I sang it exactly as notated in the book, the music sounded awful. Really awful. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this horrid tradition of 1,000 years or whatever we call it, 2,000, you can put a number to it. And this is so beautiful, this is Indian culture, this is art, and I'm a representative of this. And what is written in 1904 sounds awful if I sing the way this man sings it. So the fundamental question happened, what is this beauty that I'm enjoying? What is this idea of excellence that I'm talking about? What is this idea of brilliance that I'm talking about? So this naturally triggered far more complex questions. So the question then became a technical question suddenly transformed to a cultural question, and immediately to a socio-political question. The question of, does it sound this way only because certain people sing it? Does it sound this way only because certain people listen to it? Are there people missing from this conversation who have been lost at some point of time? What would have happened to the music if they had not been lost? So I'm saying this for a specific reason, because what can be a purely technical exercise of musicology transformed to a conversation on sociopolitics? And I think that itself for me is a very interesting link which I would have not made as a musician. Because in musical cultures you're talked about this total internal sadhana that you do with your guru, and the space is sacrosanct, and that space is kind of insulated from the outside world. No place is insulated from any part of any world. And I found that out in the most interesting fashion, that every line that I sing or every line that is notated has a musical story, has a social story, has a cultural story, and a political story. So I'm placing this right in the beginning of this conversation because that's exactly what we're going to be exploring through the various conversations that you will have.
How confident are you of your reconstruction from the notation?
Very good. I would say 70%, about 60%, 65%. There is definitely an error margin about 35 to 40%. There's definitely.
That's not sufficient to...
No, it's still not sufficient to, no. And there are places where the overlap is quite okay, it works. There are places where it works. There are other reasons to it. I'll probably come to it when I talk about Carnatic music specifically, when I'll discuss these issues. I don't want to go into that right now, but yeah, about 35 to 40% I would say is error margin. And even if I put that into the factor it in, there are cases where it works very well, there's no issue, but cases where it's seriously problematic. So the point I'm trying to say is that many ideas have changed. The idea of what was aesthetically beautiful, another word that we will discuss, what is beautiful, what was considered good music, has completely changed. And I'm not talking about, by the way, 1,000 years. I am talking about 150 years, just around the block. So it's important that you see that this link is real. This existence is real. Okay? That's all I'm trying to place.
How did you guess 35%?
Because we did.
You don't know the original.
I won't say we don't know the original. I think that's not exactly true. If you're talking about, because there is an oral tradition also. So, well, you have data. You have a data. So you have oral traditions. So you use the written data, you have the oral traditions, and you try and look at what's happened in the interactions. You also look at different other interpretations. I mean, it's as scientific method would take it, and to the best that you can do. But still there is a 35-40% possibility that there's a problem in this specific endeavor.
Have you not taken account that rotation was never very seriously done, and therefore that could have been very elementary?
In the case of this document, I'm not willing to accept that supposition, because if you look at the text and you look at the intensity with which that work was done, it was not, and also there's another whole important intentionality of notation. People take notation as being one idea, but when you notate something, or like in class, when you scribble something, you write notes. Now, or you take a text and you underline certain words. So the intention of writing that notation or that little note is to remember the key word. So you write notations like that too. Even now we write notations like that in a class when you learn music. There's some line I know I'll always forget. So I'll just put a marker over there. But in the case of this specific text, it's an archival document. And the expanse of what has been done, I think, and also when you collate it with older texts of theoretical value, it matches pretty well, pretty well.
Your basic point is that what counts as beautiful may change.
No, my basic point is that the most technical internal exercise in any field, which one very conveniently believes most of the time, especially in fields that are not directly political or social, conveniently believes exists in a certain isolated bubble, does not exist in an isolated bubble of creative enterprise. It is always also a political conversation. It is always also a social conversation, as much as it is an artistic conversation. That's all is my point.
And because that has changed, this music reconstructed literally sounded awful. Now,
yeah. So ideas of beauties are being defined by communities that hold beauties. So all these things are very intertwined. So I don't want to get stuck there right now, but that's the broader point I'm making. Okay? That because the usual tendency is to separate the two, unless it's political music directly.
Something that we had discussed before is that
Yeah.
the discussion should predominantly come from the students. So I'm cautioning the older people here and encouraging the younger people.
And if you can phase it out, it'll be easier for me to also get my thoughts together. So we can have pauses in between where we can address questions. So one of the problems with the word art is that it is used in many, many senses, in many, many ways. So it is very difficult to say what is not art most of the times. Is cooking an art? I'm going to ask these questions, but I'll throw it out here. Is cooking an art form? Is what you scribble or doodle art? In a class when you most time not interested with what the lecturer is saying, probably happens many times here. Probably happening right now, I'm not noticing. But is that art? Would you consider that art? Or is that, sorry? Yeah, I mean anything. Cricket art, the way you walk, art. The way you wear a sari, art. So, is there something more that we need to look at with the idea of art? Or do we generalize it in this terms? So that's probably the first starting point to this conversation on what is art. All of you said different things, expression, freedom, especially from this quarter, expression, freedom, somebody said abstraction, I remember, things like that. So, but the question is, what is the construction around it? So self-expression, is all self-expression a form of art? Or is art only self-expression? Any responses? Or is there a construction around it? Is there something more that needs to go into something that makes it a form of art? How many of you will consider doodling art? Ah, I knew I had a lot of hands. Okay, can you justify that statement? I want substantiations, please. Justify that statement to me. Why you would consider doodling art?
The way I see it is, art is anything that helps anyone explain or express himself to any other person. So that way, doodling, in a way, is helping people understand him better. Because doodling is not just a random thing. It comes from your brain.
Everything comes from your brain. There's nothing that does not come from your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Since it's something that's coming perhaps subconsciously from your brain, it kind of shows the type of person that you are.
so does this conversation you and I are having now. Is this an art form?
I believe so.
Okay.